Something I'd like to have us consider today. Are you ready to give up your body? To give up the world? Think about literally. Are you really ready? Does this mean yes? Or you're thinking about it?
I want to give up the world and keep my body.
That's not too unusual, Scott, really. Or Mac.
I want to give up my body but keep the world.
Keep the family, keep the friends. That's,
Yes.
I read today's lesson and I was struck by how resistant I still am after, 35 years of doing that lesson. Really gave me something to look at. My willingness or my reluctance to accept the fact that the world was simply a non-existent place. So I took it to Brother and I said, why am I still doing this? And he said, think of something that you have made that without a second thought, you were willing to give up. And that, of course, brought it back to where it's supposed to be. My recognition that I have made this world, not somebody else, not Jesus, not God, not Mac, me. I am the one.
Does that mean I've made the world I see, or is it talking about I've made the physical world?
And that's the only world there is.
Which?
Both. Then I read, when I got thoroughly disgusted with myself, I read his explanation of what the world is, which is what I'd like to do now. Have you all read that?
Yes, but not,
Let's
several
do that.
months back I read it, yes.
Let's do that. Let's do something else first. Let's go to today's lesson and read that. See what comes up for us, and then go to his explanation of what the world is, and see if we can find out why. Get the feeling of why we are so reluctant to let this go.
So lucky or so likely?
Sorry.
Would you say so lucky or so likely?
Why it is so difficult.
What?
Why it is so
Oh,
difficult.
What? You can see it.
I'm behind in the lessons, Tom, so what will be today's lesson today?
I thought it was 239.
239. 439?
239.
Anybody happen to have right offhand the page number?
For what is the, share that is the world?
Okay.
Yeah.
413.
413. 412 in the What is the world? Oh, 412 in Northbrook. Yeah.
If you're wondering why I'm having difficulty, I'm using Linda's book.
If you only had a bookmark.
If only I had a bookmark.
Just go to the bookmark.
Recognize that?
That's your house in Hawaii.
That's our Kauai house.
Okay.
Want me to hold it?
It's actually this way up
Okay.
here.
Patty, would you like to start with the lesson for today?
239.
239.
Okay, thank you. 239?
Okay, 239. The glory of my Father is my own. Let not the truth about ourselves today be hidden by a false humility. Let us instead be thankful for the gifts our Father gave us. Can we see in those with whom he shares his glory any trace of sin and guilt? And can it be that we are not among them when he loves his Son forever and with perfect constancy, knowing he is as he created him? We thank you, Father, for the light that shines forever in us, and we honor it because you share it with us. We are one, united in this light, and one with you, at peace with all creation and ourselves.
Do you have any difficulty with the glory of my Father as my own? Any difficulty at all?
No.
Why do you suppose that might be? Or first, let me say, if we have difficulty with that as the theme of the lesson, how difficult will it be to absorb the message that's in the lesson?
That's why a lot of these lessons that put me in that place that I don't believe I am in, I've kind of just lightly read over or skipped over or said someday I'll get this or someday I'll want to be this. And now it's getting serious for me. I read the words and I ask for help. What do they really mean now?
It's a false humility, he says. A false humility. Can you step around that? Can you step up to the mirror and say, this is God I'm looking at?
It's easier to look at you and say, this is God I'm looking at.
No, it's easier for me to look at you. Why do you suppose that might be? Why do we have such an image of ourselves? After studying for how many years have you studied this course? How long do we have to stick? Can we, simply through the studying of the course, come to the conclusion that the light of God is the light of who we are?
I don't think through studying it. I think through embodying it.
And how do you do that, honey?
It's like practice. It's like anything, like learning to, anything that we really start to do without thinking about it, that becomes second nature, that becomes, but this is like becoming first nature, because it's really our nature and what we are. So it's got to go beyond the intellect. And
I don't know how many times.
And it's like, for me, the way it happens is when my mind completely relaxes around whatever it is. And I mean whatever's in my mind, whatever I'm thinking about or considering or dealing with. And I think that's what I think I hear in this more than anything, is to just relax absolutely everything that I think, so that I can see straight, so I can see. But the seeing's like feeling, it's sometimes hearing, it's...
There is a practical application as well. Every time I've asked him, and it's probably been 100 times at least, his answer will be some form of, have you tried forgiveness lately?
Have you tried forgiveness lately?
Yeah.
What I find is that it's easier, like if I spent extended period of times out in the woods or in seclusion or meditation or whatever, to have these feelings and these experiences, and it's like I want to be able to carry this into the world in relationship. That I find how easy it is to lose myself in relationship with other people, of not being, holding that space. The same as what's easier when you're in meditation or feeling these feelings that you'd like to be able to interact in the world with. That's what I find is
How would you interact with the person you had a great difficulty with from the standpoint of forgiveness? How would you interact with that person based on what he's teaching us here?
As if there was nothing to forgive.
Well, you said, what did you say? You said if we're
How would you interact?
challenged, you were saying basically
Yes.
if we're feeling the tension and
Exactly.
well, and that's, I think, the biggest practice, if I'm not feeling my mind relaxed, is turning to Holy Spirit, turning to God, giving it over, saying, reinterpret for me, please. I can't be seeing straight. I'm not feeling peaceful.
Yes.
That's
Good. Very good.
If I don't judge, I have nothing to forgive. It, as a mantra, has worked very well for me, because what it does is when I get to that place where I might be judging, I hit the brakes. And I stand there and I think, okay, can I not judge this? It's not whether I judge it good or bad. Can I not judge this? And if I can, then I see my brother, I see myself, I see God. But if I can't, then I'm lost in the dream, and I know I need to do a lot of forgiveness, and I go after it.
I think that is forgiveness, Jim. Doing just exactly what you described is the role of forgiveness, yes.
Thank you.
Is that clear?
Could he say
No
it one
judgment.
more time?
Pardon me?
Could he say it one more time?
I bet he could.
Speak, Oracle.
I'm so in the moment that I don't remember what happened a moment ago.
Well, give us a new variation.
What's that?
Give us a new version.
Okay, what was the new word?
New version of what I said.
What it means,
No judgment.
Not to judge.
what it means to have no judgment.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you. When that happens, and it is happening, not so much continuously, but quite occasionally, is I realize that, I'm a little guy in a big planet, and I'm seeing a little bit of what's going on. But if I could draw far enough back, I could see the whole thing. And in the whole thing, there's no one to forgive. There's nothing to attack. There's no place to be but to embrace. And so I have to hit the brakes and get back to that by drawing away from it. And that's a crazy...
Jim, I think the greatest asset that I hear when you describe it like that is your willingness to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Well, it's easier to stop if you realize that I don't like suffering. And if each of us looked in the mirror, do you like suffering? Hell no. Well, then why do we do it? And so you can draw back from it. I take longer to answer questions. Sometimes she gets a little upset with me. It's like, come on. But if I have a chance to draw back, and when you draw back, then you're not so involved. You're the witness rather than the player. So
But
that's
you couldn't draw back if you didn't want to be free of judgment.
What's that?
I said you couldn't draw back if you didn't truly want to be free of judgment.
Yeah.
It wouldn't occur to you to draw back at all.
No.
Well, we all say we want peace. And the more we focus on that as our lifestyle, the more available it is to us. But what it means is we have to stop being player against them, whoever them is. And there's a lot of thems to be against.
And they're all me.
And they're all me. That's right.
There was a guy that wrote a book, his name's James Dunn, I think it was, and he put this great stuff in the book on that tree by the river that exemplifies just what you're saying.
I'm going to have to read that book.
I already sent it off to be a movie. Okay. Really? Wow. I did send somebody to see that movie.
I was thinking yesterday, coming back from Alderbrook Golf Course, the people in the car just it was just going and going and going. They were all talking, and the lady next to me was just talk. And I sat back, you know, and I thought, just love her. Just love them all and just let them go on. Just let it be and let it go. And I was at peace then inside of me, and they just chap. But I really was the awareness, I think, of what it was doing in me that I didn't want. I wanted to just be at peace and just to love them all. So it was the awareness that I thought, oh, this is what I want. Yeah.
I was in ER yesterday for a minor procedure, and they brought in a guy who was obviously going through a drug detox, and he was out of it and he came to and very, very verbally abusive with the nurses and loud and complaining. The nurses were doing a great job, as was the doctor who was attending him. But the guy went on and on and on. So I was laying there in my bed, trying to be non-judgmental, bringing up everything to mind I could about the course, reminding myself that he was part of me. We're all intertwined. God lives within all of us as us. But it was very, very difficult. I couldn't get over it. But I applauded myself and that I gave it a real shot, at least.
Yes. Good for you. Good for you, Mac. That is the most important thing. That you weren't judgmental about yourself because, yes. Now, we're having this conversation. How many of us tonight, when we leave here, will seriously be willing to see that it was, as he says, a false humility? How many of us would be willing to stop and say, I am the light of God?
I had an experience
Thank you.
recently that I've shared at a couple other meetings. If I've shared it here, please stop me. But you were asking about the process that we go through, and you mentioned about the will. And I have recognized in recent months that there's been a real shift in my resistance. And when that shift started to happen and I became more willing, it's like things just seemed to start opening up. I started listening and I started hearing, in my thoughts, stuff would just start coming to me that I would know was from somewhere else besides me. And I had an experience with my daughter recently where she called up and was kind of bouncing off the walls, didn't know what to do with herself, and was frustrated and lonely and just going through a lot of confusion about how to make some decisions she had to make. She was talking about one of the things she wanted to do was go out and visit her sister on their acreage and trade some labor weeding for vegetables, but she doesn't like being with her sister because she's got all this family history, all this conditioning, and she goes out there and she wants to process all this old conditioning about these issues with her sisters, and she says they just want to act normal and be happy as if and live in the moment. And I have things I need to resolve. I want to talk about the past. And so, anyhow, as a result of listening to her, after we hung up, I found myself compelled to write a text. And it was such an experience for me because it just came out of my fingers, and it was like it was, oh my, and then I read it, and I cried, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. And I'd like to read it to you.
Please.
Because it applies to our processing. And how do I, this is about, how I envision my processing, my relationship with the Spirit these days. And so here it is. This is what I said to her. And one of the things she commented on, when she goes out to her sister, she says, they just want to act normal, but there's this huge elephant in the room. This unresolved stuff. And she referred to it as an elephant. And you'll see the word elephant in here, so I want to explain that. So here's the text. Remember, it is important to be at complete peace with whatever choices you make throughout your day. Here's how you do it. Put your hands on your heart, close your eyes, pause, breathe deeply, and pay close attention to the energy speaking to you. Do this with complete attention. You will feel discord or complete peace about your current choice of action. This only need take a minute. Feeling of peacefulness is your signal to continue. If you feel any uneasiness, stop and ask your higher self for direction. Direction will come to you in your thoughts or events around you. Then you choose again. Repeat the process until you're peaceful. This is how you learn to trust your higher self. It is quite dependable, and as you gain confidence in your higher self, your neediness from others will dissipate. You will discover the power and strength that you are. With each success, you will learn to love the wonderful you that lies within. She's struggled so much with her inner self. You have always been this, but could not see it. Your vision was blocked because your mind was focused on the elephant, that past conditioning that taught you to see yourself falsely. Find the truth of that wonderful you by trying heart guidance. You are love, and you are loved. I am with you, and your higher self. Also, you are never alone. Peace to you, my dear daughter, Dad.
That is truly, that's a work of art.
I know. And after I read it, I just thought, where did that come from? And then I thought, this is such a beautiful message for my daughter. And then it struck me. This was a message for me.
Yeah.
This is where I've come to in my life. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Randall. That's great stuff.
Our consciousness is such a beautiful thing. Most of us can't even recognize how to appreciate it at all, let alone for what it totally encompasses. But within, if you could just remember, let me try. Within the universe, as God knows it, there is an awareness of everything that God is. We call that consciousness. Everything, every thought that has ever been processed by God is there. It's a part of the one consciousness. It's there forever. And each of us, when we are able to let go of the blocks between ourselves and the consciousness, are able to reach out and just allow ourselves to be bathed in that, by that, and just let it wash over us and bring us the healing balm that we need in the moment. Because it's always there. It's always happening. It's always flowing. And that's why Brother tells us in the beginning of this lovely book, nothing real can be threatened. You see, if we let ourselves be free, and as he says in today's lesson, as you allow yourself to be free of the bounds that the body and the world, the feelings of separation seem to impose, all of this goes away. Because that's not what's there. We manufacture all of the rest of this. We make it up. And it's only as powerful ever as our desire to keep it. And when you had the desire not to keep it, look at the beautiful feeling that came through to you. Experiment on occasion. Just ask your God self, how? Or to take your hand and bring you into the space where you had no fear. Into a state of mind where you absolutely would not, could not attack, have any attack thoughts whatsoever. And you will be amazed. You'll be amazed at what flows, what you say, or which you probably describe as something coming to you, but it's not coming to you. It's coming as you. Because that's who you really are. That's the consciousness that attaches you to Jesus and to God. Do that. Do that. And help us all have the ability to say, I am the light of the world. And know that it's true. And just as you said, there are times when that light is going to be rather dark. But that's okay. It's okay, Mac, that you couldn't in that moment embrace that man. But you did change the dynamic of everything that was happening there simply because you brought the awareness that there was something different to see.
This kind of brings to mind, I look at it as a gift now that happened many, many years ago. Our kids were still in grade school and we had moved to Duchesne, Utah. It was a small rural town. And I had always been in PTA in the town that we moved from, so I wanted to be in PTA there as well. And I got involved during Teacher Appreciation Week. And there were many of the other mothers in town that were supposed to help with, making different things for different days. Well, I found myself not getting any help from anyone. But at the time, it wasn't in my awareness what was going on. I found out later that it was an effort between all the other mothers in PTA not to help me because they didn't really know me. I really don't know, to this day because of the way it transpired, what they were doing wasn't in my awareness and it was never brought to my awareness. And I just remember, okay, today is dessert day. And then the next day is salad day. Well, I like to cook, I have all these wonderful recipes. I can make all these. This isn't a big deal. It's just a small school. And the teachers were just lovely. And I had the best time. And so and the principal, and I mean, I made really good friends with the teachers and the principal, and it was just a lovely, wonderful time. And I mean, it wasn't until years and years later that I was made aware of what had transpired, but by then it was like, well, that really wasn't in my reality. I don't remember ever feeling bad about it, and I wasn't what you could call close friends with any of these ladies, but we weren't enemies either. And it was like a gift was given me that I was not pulled in to this victim or anger or taking away, what is supposed to be a good week for the teachers, a beautiful week for the teachers, and that's what it ended up being, was just a wonderful week. And I look back on that where, for some reason or another, what these other women were doing was not a part of my reality, was not a part of the equation of the story or whatever. And I look back on that and think, well, how many other instances have happened like that, where all this negative or this victim or whatever has not been a part of my reality. And so on so many things, I always try to be so grateful when a beautiful day happens or a beautiful, relationship happens, that, wow, thank you, because what could have happened was not a part of this. And so I don't know, that just brought that to mind, but it just feels good to have that past experience to look upon, and then to be able to bring such gratitude to many more experiences.
The feelings of what happened when you step away from what could be conflict
Yeah.
and just allow the good feelings, the love feelings to come to you.
And it was almost like all that was designed for me to be a beautiful experience, and how many of those are designed for all of us to be beautiful experiences.
I was just reading today a book called Modern Man and Spirituality. We're reading about a section where, as one evolves spiritually, they begin to have a different experience of life. We have changes the way our brain collects information and processes this information, and has a separate value on this information. So the miraculous becomes more and more commonplace. The experience you have didn't belong to the reality of the energy that you were aligned with anymore. So for you, it wasn't a reality. You had to be told about it. And of course, you can remember the days when you felt that way, and even today, you might feel that way about some things. But there's many changes that happen, even in our physical bodies.
Yeah.
And where our brain works when we evolve.
Ask yourself for just a moment, just to your point, or to point out what you're saying. What makes you different from Jesus? Is there anything else? No? No?
He yielded
Just a
himself. He
little
yielded
thing
his,
called belief.
he yielded his will completely.
That's our belief. And that's what we have to give.
He says in my autobiography that there is no difference between him and us. He's just someone who's higher up the ladder than we are.
Further down the road.
Because that's what I liked, was he didn't talk about higher and lower. He kept referring to it like further down the road. So it's like we're all on this. He was just further down the path, down the road. And it didn't put it on a high level, this or that. When you always think of higher, then it's almost like it's a different range than what we're functioning on.
Well, the higher is just, it's just a higher place to see from. It's not higher like, I'm a higher being than you. It's more like seeing from above the battleground. That's the only difference, and that's what I hear Tom saying. When he says
Yeah, he's
belief,
just-
it's the belief. It's like, well, how we perceive ourselves.
He's just saying to
Yeah.
me now that that's a particularly good way to being farther down the road, a particularly good way to see things, particularly when you recognize that there is no road.
Yes.
That's true. Particularly in the interest.
You know, it's kind of funny, we're all awakening. I mean, and that's not just people in this room, that's everybody is awakening. But we're at different places in our awakening. And all it means is that we're either going to be a learner or a teacher. And in every moment, we're one or the other. So, or it's like someone who's not where we are, downline, we reach out and pull them up. And then we look over our shoulder and somebody's offering their hand to us to pull us up. And in the awakening, it seems as though this is what's happening.
It is what's happening. It is, literally.
An interesting thing, I like this concept of false humility. And this goes along with what you're saying. One of the greatest spiritual teachings I think I've ever heard was when I was about 13 or 14. And my dad said to me, "Remember, Brian, you're just as good as anybody else, but you're not any better." You know, my dad was not a spiritual person. And where the heck that came from, I don't know. But you know, that's the only thing he ever said that I remember, is that. And in recovery, you often hear humility is not thinking less of myself, it's thinking of myself less.
Thinking of myself.
Less.
Separate.
That's a neat
Yeah.
correlation, the two different ways of being. Not thinking less of myself, but thinking of myself less.
Right.
Means I'm thinking of others.
Right.
I'm thinking of peace. I'm thinking of joy.
Out of the ego.
Yeah.
Or not thinking,
That's the
Just
highest
being.
state.
just being. It's like, you know, if you're watching the sunset, as soon as you start thinking about it, then you take yourself out of the presence of just being and experiencing.
Some things can't be defined.
Huh?
Some things cannot be defined.
That's
They can be
true.
felt, but not defined.
That's right.
One of my poems says I'm either happy or I'm thinking.
Or I'm what?
I'm either happier or I'm thinking.
There you go.
That's good.
Is that in here?
Yeah.
Good. Oh, great.
Good.
You know, I think what it meant is I'm either happy or I'm judging.
Yeah.
But most of our thinking, if we're not on a committed path to awakening, most of our thinking is judging.
It is.
And so, as we
Would you say 99.9?
see clearer,
Yes.
yeah, as we see clearer, we are less inclined to judge. Oh, interesting. You know, that just means
Or if we see it, I mean, we're more aware to see it and say, oh, well, I forgive myself. Or I let go.
I like looking at the sunset, and then all at once you get into judging it. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Oh, couldn't that be, you know, whatever. We get into judgment.
the one last Thursday was prettier. You know.
Yeah, right, whatever. Or even just judging it good or bad. I mean, it's judging,
Yeah.
you know? Isn't that beautiful?
The shortest sentence in the course is "judge not."
Is there a difference between judgment and discernment?
Say again?
Is there a difference between judgment and discernment? Discernment?
Discernment?
Yeah.
Not really.
Really?
Not really.
Oh.
Discernment is just the ego's way of making some kind of judgment's okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like Jesus in his book, when he starts.
Well, unless it's turned over to the Holy Spirit.
Randall,
No, it wasn't.
can you sit next to me, my wife?
No, I mean, unless we turn discernment over to the Holy Spirit.
Can be.
If we're trying to discern a situation, which way to go.
You turn it over to the Holy Spirit, and it's gone.
Yeah.
There's nothing to discern.
That's right.
That's how we can be certain.
Very true.
It goes in.
Very true.
Yeah. Anyone else? Let's begin to read. What is the world?
What is the world? The world is false perception.
Now, hang on.
Oh,
No, that's good.
oh,
But, I mean, we need to think about that one for a second. The world is false perception. It says a lot, doesn't it?
yeah.
Among other things, it says that we made the world.
Well, not only that, but it says we're in one little place in the world. And so we see something, but we certainly don't ever see the world. We have to go into deep space and then it'd just be this beautiful wall. And then there'd be nothing but to love it.
Right.
Oh, okay. It is born of air and it has not left its source. It will remain no longer than the thought that gave it birth is cherished. When the thought of separation has been changed to one of true forgiveness, will the world be seen in quite another light, and one which leads to truth, where all the world must disappear and all its errors vanish. Now its source is gone, and its effects are gone as well. The world was made as an attack on God. It symbolizes fear, and what is fear except love's absence? Thus the world was meant to be a place where God could not enter, and where his Son could be apart from him. Here was perception born, for knowledge does not cause such insane thoughts, but eyes deceive and ears hear falsely. Now mistakes become quite possible, for certainty has gone. The mechanisms... Oh, yeah, sorry.
The mechanism
Before
of
you
illusion.
go on.
Okay.
Any questions or comments so far? Questions or comments so far?
It keeps reminding me of that I need to be ever vigilant for asking, let me see this differently now.
It says, or he says, the world is an attack on God. What does he mean by that? Why is the world an attack on God?
Well, because God is eternal and the world sure is not.
Yeah, that's one thing.
It's a false
I think there's
accusation.
something even more important than that. The world seems to be our proof that separation is real.
Sure, because
And
you
that's an
can't,
attack on God. That's an attack on creation. It says we are all a part of this one loving thought.
It says here, the world was meant to be a place where God could enter not.
Yes.
I don't remember reading that before. They probably snuck that in here when I wasn't looking.
Probably did, Ryan. He does that.
This is just our tangible five senses, and that's what we perceive as the real world. And God is not in those, well, he is and everything, but in a sense, not that.
It's also an attack, isn't it, because it began with a judgment.
Yes. Yes, you could describe it that way.
There was an idea that was in opposition to God's. God is an idea, or had created from an idea, and then there was this other thought that was in opposition to that. The idea of separation as versus the idea of
Yes.
oneness. Is that the attack or the threat?
The attack we need to see, I think, is that the very idea of God cannot exist until you see it as a part of what you are. As soon as you separate yourself from it, it's gone.
You're outside.
Yeah, then you're gone. Now everything has changed.
So there we go back to the prodigal son and the prodigal journey.
Exactly. Exactly so.
Ruby has a great poem that something, part of it says, for the longest time I was knocking on a door from the inside.
Yes. Yes, I love that. Any other comments?
Grace Lee? The mechanisms of illusion have been born instead. Okay, I need to think about that. The mechanisms of illusion have been born instead. And now they go to find what has been given them to seek. Their aim is...
So the world becomes a place where we can only justify what we already believe is true.
Their aim is to fulfill the purpose which the world was made to witness and make real, and that's separation. They see in this its illusions but a solid base where truth exists upheld apart from lies. Yet everything that they report is but illusion, which is kept apart from truth. Okay, say that for me say that in a simpler. I don't know if it's just because I was reading it, but it's not.
Read it again, honey.
Yeah, it's not connecting.
Yeah, read it again.
Okay. The mechanisms of illusion have been born instead, and now they go
Now
to
stop
find.
there. The mechanisms of illusion have been created. Why?
To show it, to see the separation between us and God.
To prove that that's
They
real.
exist.
Yes.
Okay, that helps. Unless everyone wants me to read it again, I do get that now.
Whatever.
4. As sight was made to lead away from truth, it can be redirected. Sounds become the call for God, and all perception can be given a new purpose by one whom God appointed. One whom God appointed Savior to the world, and that's all of us. Follow His light and see the world as He beholds it. Hear His voice alone in all that speaks to you, and let Him give you peace and certainty, which you have thrown away, but heaven has preserved for you in Him.
In other words, he's saying that we literally can change the world by changing the way we see it, by changing the purpose that we have given it. We change the way we see it. And how do we change the way we see it? How do we give it a different purpose? Through forgiveness. Through forgiveness. That's what allows us to step back, Jim.
I guess the ego doesn't like the idea of not knowing. And yet, if you're not in not knowing, you really can't grasp anything.
You can't be free of judgment.
Yeah, you can't be free of judgment, that's right. And so not knowing now can move from a screwed up place to a holy place. This not knowing.
That's a judgment.
Isn't that an interesting concept?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
I heard that one time, that the one question you can always, the one thing, the answer to everything, the 3 words is, I don't know.
Linda's favorite
Opens up new
expression,
doorways.
one of her favorite expressions in the Course, is that love is the answer, no matter what the question.
Yes.
Can't go wrong with
Something that's really helped me was, as I gradually became aware, some of my reading, it revolves around science and whatnot, and as I gradually became aware that everything is energy, and that everything I see, everything my eyes see, my eyes don't see anything, first of all. And that was something that really helped me. My eyes don't see. My eyes simply receive energy signals. And everything out there, everything in this room, are just energy fields. And if we had eyes to see the energy fields, we'd see pulsating light and energy coming from all of us, from the table, from the glasses and the cups, everything is just energy. But the eyes are made to deceive. And so our eyes tell us that this is really just a solid thermos. I can't put my hands through it, it's solid. But in truth, it isn't. There's really hardly anything there at all. It's just space. And the reason that my hand, I grab it and I can't push my hand through it is because this is energy and that's energy, and they repel each other. And I can never really touch this. There's always space between. And it just has helped me when I look at things, and I know this is true. I accept it as a fact of this illusion that we live in. And then I wasn't going to read this, but it's really just a short thing this morning that came to me, and it just keeps coming back in my mind. And I thought, okay, I'll read it. It's my guidance this morning. I love everyone, and then this wonderful realization. Everyone loves me. They love me, and even though they are unaware of it, and even though they believe they are capable of attacking me. How is this so? As I became aware of the love within, became aware of it, and even if they believe they are capable of attacking me, how can this be? As I become aware of the love within, I naturally project it outward, dressing or cloaking what appears as another separate entity. I cover them with my mind's loving, energetic veil of love. In that loving light, darkness of fear and separation cease. So I see only the light of love. That, being the truth of them, is all that remains. I am seeing my beliefs, my perceptions, my thoughts manifested or realized. I am seeing myself looking back at me as if I were in a funhouse encircled with mirrors, every mirror reflecting the image of the self I am. Truly, there is only the one, and so round and round I go on love's holy carousel, a never-ending, eternal, expanding circle of love. I ask today to see, to be, only that. Cheers to all. But when we're talking here about, how we're deceived, and I don't know, I'm not responsible for how this has evolved. I simply have been willing to allow it to happen. And I find it as I look and I see, and I know that what I'm seeing is an illusion. It truly is an illusion. And was it Einstein said space and time are an illusion? He recognized it. But we're also duped into believing that trusting our eyes, and we can't. Anyway.
Thanks for the reminder.
Great.
There was
Any
a
other
comment.
comments?
There was a comment, I'm not sure where I read it, but it was some book or something, and it had in quotes, "I can't believe my eyes," and it said, "There's more truth to this than you think."
You'll see that in my book.
Huh?
The statement, "I can't believe my eyes,"
Yeah,
is absolutely true.
yeah, and that's what it said, it's absolutely true.
Yeah, I give the meaning to everything I see.
You know, we put so much emphasis and we look at people and we talk about judgment. I mean, you know, we judge each other about our appearance and how we talk or how we walk or just all these external things, all these body things. And then if you look at somebody and realize that you're not seeing what's there, that what's there is pure love. I mean, it's the beautiful entity that's the self that's within. And it almost gets to be fun. I mean, you start moving around through the grocery store and you start realizing, oh gosh, all this motion going on around me, it isn't what I think it is. And then and what that does is it frees me. It frees me to think about what's real, because I can discount what's not. Anyway.
That's good.
One of my poems in there is a nod to Shakespeare. It says, "Ah, what fools these mortals be, who believe only what the human eyes can see." This part in here where it says that we have thrown away peace and certainty, you know, it kind of gives you the idea that this didn't happen by accident. We threw it away. We had it, and we threw it away.
We're trying to throw it away.
Yeah, still trying. Yeah.
And we're going to fail.
Who's up?
Let us not let us not rest content until the world has joined our changed perception. Let us not be satisfied until forgiveness has been made complete. And let us not attempt to change our function. We must save the world, for we who made it must behold it through the eyes of Christ, that what was made to die can be restored to everlasting life.
Kind of gives you a heavy responsibility, doesn't it? We must save the world. Wow.
And I thought we were here just to have fun.
Yeah.
Right. Well, for my heaviness pleasure.
That's pretty.
Are we really willing to hold in our consciousness that such thoughts as fear, anger, pain, death are not real? That we don't need them? We literally could have a world where we would be free of these? Is that too big? Is there too much there? Or can we do it?
We can do it, we're God's children. How can we not do it?
There's
I like that, Brian. How can we not do it?
Yeah.
Why would we not try?
We just make a choice to do something different. And the course tells us we can always choose again.
How would we do that? What would be the best way to begin? What would be the best way to begin to illustrate that fear was not real?
See everyone as oneself.
Well, it's true. Well, I think Brian said it. It's a choice. There's a choice involved, and I think for me, I'm noticing it. It shows up. You know, it's more and more frequent, but it shows up in these small interactions, and really, there's so much humor. I mean, these really humorous ways, and they're miraculous, you know. And it always has to do with Linda's favorite saying about love always being the answer, no matter what, any kind of disturbance. And so I remember when we were at the gas pump, and they have these new pumps now. You see them with the TVs on them and stuff, and then they blare out these. They're loud, you know. And I'm always kind of like, what is that talking at me? And I realized, oh, there's a TV there looking at me and all this advertising and all this stuff going on. And so we're both reflecting on it. Oh yeah, now even, and then I'm thinking, even here, they've got me with their advertisements and trying to pull me into the marketing. And I have a psychology degree, so I'm thinking, I know all about that. I understand how they design all this, you know. So I'm looking at that, and then I say something to Randall about it, and then all of a sudden I just said, no, why can't the Holy Spirit talk to me right here too? This can be a wonderful, and all of a sudden the whole screen changed, and it said with integrity, beauty, prosperity, and it said bloomers, blooming, and I said, that's right. It's all just blooming consciousness, and everything that came across there was just beautiful. You know, and you could feel the energy of it, just this loving, and things can just shift like that, you know. It's so wonderful. And suddenly I was having this love experience with this TV on my gas pump.
There's some place in the Course, and I don't know where it is, but I know it's in there. It says, when love is all you want, love is all you'll see.
Yes.
So it has to, the key word here is in the wanting. What is it we want to see? Do we want to see how beautiful and perfect and wonderful this place is? Or do we want to complain about it and say, yeah, it could have been different, could have been better?
Do you want to see the love within someone, or do you want to focus on the judging their shell?
Yep.
Yeah.
One of the things that's hard is that just before I came here, I was listening to Tina that brought through Jesus is my autobiography. And so I was listening to some things to her on there, and I'd heard her say some things before, but this was again so direct. It was about get rid of your TV, you know, get rid of the news, get rid of this stuff. But on this one, it was like he said, through her, he said, get that TV outside, take it out. And I just went, wait a minute, I'm sitting here watching you coming through on this and all this other good stuff on here, that there's finally good news, good stuff, and all of this. How can you say take it out? I couldn't be listening to you. So there's a little conflict there, and then the adamancy, which this time it was get it out the door. Anyway, it's quite good to go on and see it. It was just so uplifting to hear. And I was thinking, you know, if you have people not get caught in the messenger of saying, is this the right one or isn't it? If the message that's coming through and the information makes sense, don't get hung up on the messenger. But it is. I mean, and when you quit judging, you'll hear what he's saying.
I find that the easiest way for me to slow down my judgments is to say, is that so? Leave it as a question.
That's good.
Somebody says, oh, the world's a dirty, dark place. Is that so? But it doesn't mean I agree with you. It's just I'm saying, is that how you see it? And so they have a perfect right to see it that way. I don't. I can see it the way I want to see it.
You were asking Tom about fear. You know, what's the best way to address it? And I think about a life experience I had where you're all going to be amused by this. I was living with my ex-mother-in-law, and I won't lengthen the story with all the dynamics going on there, but I wanted to go either to a movie or to the beach. I wanted to do something. I had to get out of there. And I was terrified because I'd never done things alone. I mean, it was years ago, and I was out of a relationship, and I just thought, it'd be so weird to go to a movie by myself or go to the beach. I'd just be so lonely. And then the thought came to me, don't let fear run your life. And so I got out, walked out, got in the car and drove 45 miles to the coast. Had the most, I wish I had time to tell you, it was the most beautiful soul-moving experience sitting on the beach and watching this amazing activity in the sky and the sunset. And I drove back and I was so enriched, but I was free. And what happened about fear was that I faced it. I went through it. Instead of allowing it to control me, I went through it, and when I turned and looked back, it was toothless. It was nothing.
It was gone.
And I thought, my gosh, what a powerful experience. And then in my spiritual life, bringing this, that's the physical conquering of fear, more or less, or psychological, but then there's this fear of all my conditioning. You know, all the conditioning that keeps me imprisoned in my mind. And I found the same thing. And what I've gone through and looking at all this conditioning, all this stuff that I once I was willing to start to see, it was like these fears that I've lived with, all this baggage, just it would come up in my face in an event, in some experience, and then instead of pushing it down and shunning it, I would just let it come up and I would experience it, re-experience it, and let it come into my life. And then I saw that it was nothing. And that's why I've come to where I am. I mean, that's part of what's been happening, is that little by little I've faced each of these things from my past and watched them melt away. And it seems like facing fear, and then you do it, and then of course, as each fear gets resolved, it's like I start feeling more empowered. But I'm not doing this alone. I'm doing this with the Spirit. And that's the thing that's changed everything, is my willingness to be guided. And so, this thing about asking, what would love do now?
So I was going to ask you, and you just answered the question, had you thought about the fact that when you decided to go to the beach and drive, that you were not alone? Because that voice said to you, don't let fear control your life or run your life.
That thought came to me as those words came out of my mouth just now.
Okay.
It went back and I thought, oh my gosh.
Right. You weren't alone.
Right.
Just like I'm trying to tell my daughter.
Otherwise, what we're trying to do is face our fears only with our egos. And that's going to be tough. I know from experience.
One of my favorite lessons in the Course is I choose the love of God instead of fear.
And the first time I looked at the word alone and saw it was all one.
You need one more L, but it is true. I noticed that too.
Yeah, that it was all one. And how that happened was in a program, in a training stuff, and towards the end of it. And for some reason or other, I got started coming up like this, and other people started, and pretty soon we were all up like this. And just the sound that started coming out was all one, ultimately, out of the vibrations that were coming. And it was just like this all one was what came out. And that was right around when I first recognized that in the word itself.
Better be careful, Rand, when you keep letting fear go. You might start doing things like jumping out of airplanes.
Well, when I think of fear, I think of FEAR.
Right,
False expectations appearing real.
right.
So it makes me look at the situation a different way.
Or even
Like, what are my,
experience.
why am I looking at this way? Or be willing to look at it another way.
It's a good one. You keep reading in the Course where it keeps saying, it teaches all the correct ideas, but taking those and putting them into experience, being able to experience them in my moment-to-moment activities, that's where I've been involved in this for, 15 years or something, and it's just recent months, I'm beginning to feel the power of being able to experience these wonderful truths, of loving someone, and then feeling, and just asking, what would love do now? and then listening. And then you just instantly, like I don't have to wait. It's like instantly, I just know what to do. And I do it, and and you have this incredible peace that comes over you. And that's where I've started. My life has just opened up because I'm starting to experience, I can hardly talk. I'm starting to experience what these teachings mean, and I've never been there before. Anyway.
That's great.
Hallelujah.
Thanks, Randall. I really, really am thankful that you're willing to be that open with us. That's beautiful.
That's a miracle because this isn't how I used to be. Now you can't shut me up.
We'll deal with that later.
This is how you've always been.
We'll deal with that later.
Allowing it through.
I wasn't
All the
allowing it.
stuff covered over you. You've always been this.
Anybody else?
So when you said, are you willing to give up this world and all that, the immediate answer that came to me is, well, yes. But obviously I'm not ready because I'm still here.
And Brian, I think that's why when he gives us his definition of what the world is, he says you can save the world. You don't have to give it up. You can save it, but the distinction is that when you do save it and recognize that it's yours, it's gone.
Interesting.
You must save the world. Sounds to me like he's talking about the happy dream. Convert it from this world to what's called the real world.
Well, the world can only exist as long as we have a purpose for it. And the purpose for it is always because we're projecting our fears and upsets onto it. But as soon as we accept it as our own, its purpose is gone. And then it can take on the purpose of the real world.
So the purpose of the world is not to have a purpose of the world.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. The purpose of the world is to completely forgive it, and then we're beyond it. The world is not perfect anymore.
If we understand, now, the way I look at it, if we understand we're in a dream, we're dreaming that there's a world, and it's real, you know? Well, in the dream, of course, it's real. But as we awaken, we'll realize, well, that was just a dream. There is no world. There's love and nothing else. There's not love and anything else. And so we are all in the process of awakening and realizing that love is all there is. Love is God. They're interchangeable words.
Well, we're doing it all the time. Every time you do something that you weren't aware of before, all at once, your world's different. Your experience is different. It's like you woke up that, hey, this isn't what I thought it was. And so it is a process that moment by moment, continually waking up to something different. And when you do that, then the perception or dream of what you thought it was is gone.
We see more clearly.
Yeah. On a clear day, you can see through. Yeah, that's a very significant movie.
But I like that thought, Tom, you asked about, are we ready to leave, like our body today, tonight, like right now? I ask myself that question a lot every day, it seems like. It puts me right in the moment with the truth of something.
You know, the answer to that question is not what's important. It truly isn't. Because there isn't anywhere to go. There really isn't anything for us to even be doing about it. What's important is that we are willing to ask the question, which is the acknowledgement that we are in charge.
Like the lesson a couple days ago. I rule my mind.
The kingdom
Which-
I must rule. Yes. Yes.
I saw a movie this weekend called The Farewell. And the premise of that was that grandma in China was seeing the doctor and not feeling well, but she wasn't getting the results directly from the doctor, you know. He would give it to her sons. And a family that had immigrated here from there, they were going back for a wedding. So everybody's getting together under the premise that they're for this other person's wedding, but it's really to be with grandma again, you know, because she's not going to be around here. But nobody's talking about it. And it's a big lie to the extent that there's a doctor, her doctor, the young American gal is having a conversation with the grandmother's doctor, and they're all keeping it from the woman because their belief is that knowing that people get fearful and then they die. They die from fear, not necessarily from what they have. And it's a Chinese film, and I think it's about their culture.
But
you know?
it's true, isn't
But
it?
I thought it was,
It's true, it's based on fact. Wasn't there a book, a non-fiction book about it?
it's a book.
And then didn't they take her to the movie? And she thought it was just a movie?
I don't know about that
I
part.
think so. I think my wife read the book, and that's what she said. So
That they didn't show that in the movie.
they thought she.
They just had a clip way at the end where grandma lived another 6 years.
It's like I've got in the Mother Peace Tarot cards, which are my favorite of all cards, and one of the cards says hopes and fears. So it's either what I hope for or what I feared has come upon me, that which we draw to us. So if it's a fear of whatever, some disease, some death, some whatever, how we're that powerful.
Are we powerful?